Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday. It is the 12th of June. Ray Abbott, good to see you, my friend. We've got Kevin Ryan here. We've got people coming in from all over the world. We've got some from Milwaukee. It's Stephanie Ortiz-Minami, Michael Cadden from Connecticut. People coming from all over the world. And it is such an important show today. We're going to be talking about how to start your own global mobility business. Now, I know a lot of people, and I was one of them actually, dream the dream of saying, you know, one day I want to start my own business. I've got this idea. And a lot of people, you know, for one reason or another, life gets in the way, it doesn't happen. But some people do. And I'm so excited. We have got two of the most high profile female mobility tech entrepreneurs in our industry. Backstage, we've got the amazing, the awesome Lynn Greenberg from Pivt app, and we've got the equally amazing, equally awesome Vivi Himmel from AltoVita. And they're going to be sharing their stories about how they built it, how they took the idea that they had and took it from the light bulb of an idea to actually building a business, and building a business which is actually meaningful in our industry. So if you want to hear the story about how they built their business, then do listen through. But equally, if you want their advice, maybe you're thinking about launching a business and you're keen to know, you know, what are the lessons they've learned, the advice they gave, the pitfalls, whatever, how they went about doing it. Well, we've got two of the best in the house today. So it's going to be a fascinating, fascinating show. How to start your own global mobility business. So everybody, you know how it works. Please join in the conversation. A lot of you are already. Write in the comments box. Tell us who you are, where you are. And as we go through, again, ask questions and engage in the debate. It's just great to see so many of you are here today, which is absolutely fabulous. People coming in from all over the world to join us, which is great. By the way, a lot of people do like CPE credits, and of course you can get your CPE credits from us. You can get them from, if you want the worldwide ERC credits. I'm super excited actually. I saw Mark Birchall is in the house. So Mark Birchall is the chair-elect at Worldwide ERC, and he's watching the show today. And indeed, he's going to be a guest on the show shortly, which is really exciting. But if you want your ERC credits, GMS or CRP credits, they are there. Similarly, if you want HRCI credits or SHRM credits, then courtesy of our really good friends at Rocket Mortgage, those credits are there. So if you want those credits, then you know what to do. Just jot down the relevant number or take a screenshot or get your camera out and take a photo, whatever you want to do. But we'll leave those up there for a minute. Next week, we've got another really interesting show. We're going to be talking about the importance of benchmarking. And we've got Ellen Shipley from Slalom and Benivo's very own Russ Haney. Because a lot of people talk about benchmarking, but actually, how do you benchmark? Who do you benchmark with? What things should you benchmark? How frequently should you be benchmarking? When, at what point in the business cycle should you be benchmarking? So it's going to be a fascinating show about how you especially as a corporate, how you should go about benchmarking. So that's next week. So I think you'll find that, you know, again, a fascinating show. What else has been happening in our wonderful world of global mobility? Well, as ever, we always like to share the breaking news. Who has been promoted over the last 7 days? Who has got a new job? What jobs are out there? So let's have a look, and maybe you'll see a name of someone you know. If so, do hit that heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button as the video is playing. Equally, there might be a job out there that is of interest. By the way, if you have some news you want to share on The View from the Top, then do just message us and we'll make sure that we promote whatever it is that's happened in your life. Equally, of course, if you've got a job that you want to get filled, then again, let us know and we'll try and promote it for you. Anyway, let's see what's been going on in the wonderful world of global mobility in the last 7 days. So there we have it. Congratulations to everyone who's been promoted, everyone who's got a new job, and best of luck for everybody who is looking for a new job. And hopefully some of the jobs that are out there, and there seem to be a lot of jobs out there at the moment, one of them is going to be the right one for you. Anyway, we're going to move on now. We've got our regular weekly immigration update. And as ever, we are delighted we have backstage with us the one and only, the wonderful Julia Onslow Cole, who's going to be talking about a really important subject, and not one I think that's been spoken about much before, certainly not on this show, and I don't think really anywhere. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's welcome to the stage Julia Onslow Cole. Hey, Julia, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you.
And Julia, I said it's a subject we haven't really talked about, but it's an amazingly important subject. So tell us about it. Let's dive in, because it is a really big subject you're talking about today.
Yes. So, well, I always try and find something interesting and topical to talk about. But I had the privilege of looking at Austin Fragman, who's our chair emeritus, and Nancy Morowitz's paper, which has just got published in a very important journal in the US, about the impact of climate migrants. And I thought, well, this is a really interesting topic, and it also leads on to
migrants. That's people moving because of climate change.
Yes, forced to leave because of climate change, and it kind of links in with all the conversations we've had about talent beyond boundaries, who are, reaching out to refugees and trying to match them and regarding them as a real pool of talent. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the next 4 minutes. And what we're seeing is that if you analyze the figures between 2008 and 2016, on average, 22 million people in each of those years had to leave their own country because of changes to do with climate.
Wow.
The World Bank has just released a study, and they estimate that as many as 216 million people will be displaced because of climate reasons by 2050. So we're talking about an enormous amount of people who have to move. So just picking one example, you'll see that because of the unbelievably dry weather that Somalia and Ethiopia have had, many crops aren't growing, and we're seeing a huge move of Somalian and Ethiopian nationals into refugee camps in Kenya. So this is just sort of one example. Now, the problem that we have is that the old frameworks, the old solid international frameworks about who is a refugee, what protection should they be given, were done long before we had all of our problems with global warming and the climate. And therefore, these protocols are really, not fit for purpose because they don't have any such categories. And Austin himself has been working on some international protocols, but they actually haven't, unfortunately, been fully implemented. And then you get countries like the US who do a little bit. So they offer temporary protected status. And an example of that is in the Obama era in 2010, when all the problems with the climate in Haiti, Obama allowed people who were in the US to have this status. And in, I think it was 2022, Biden renewed that status for those people. But the problem with this, it's only people who are already in the US. There is no way that helps people come into the US. So there's a big, there's a big hole in that. And also, it's not the same in every country. So what you need is some sort of uniform international protection that actually encompasses moving if there's a big climate crisis, and then looking after the people when they were there. And one of the problems is that there's just not enough data about the scale, duration, and seriousness of severity of adverse climate effects and the impact on mobility. So this impact on mobility, that's really poorly researched. And in order to do that, you need a lot more data. And another thing that is a really difficult topic around this whole issue is who is a climate migrant. So if, for example, I actually would much rather leave the country I'm in because I think I can have a better life somewhere else, and there happens to be, you know, climate impacts in my country, am I a true climate migrant, or would I not be a climate migrant? So lots of problems. And then the other thing is that, you know, then what happens when you move? So if you go back to those figures I was saying, there's millions and millions of people that are going to move. And you think of the work that Talent Beyond Boundaries do to sort of match skills in refugee camps and look at those as a pool of talent. You know, what can you do to accelerate that? Because it's a really big issue for mobility as we go forward. And the last thing I'd like to say is that, you know, I was writing all these notes up today, and I was reading Austin's and Nancy's paper, which, you know, I haven't really given justice because it's pages long and so interesting. But honestly, I just quickly looked at the headlines, and you see the excessive flood, you know, that there has been in Dubai, the really big floods that there are at the current time in Mallorca, the searing heat you've got in Greece and Cyprus, and then the unusually sort of colder weather we're having in the UK at the moment. So, you know, you do not have to look far without realizing that this is a big issue and it is a mobility issue as well as all the other types of issues it is.
Thank you, Julia. This is, I think, the first time it's been addressed, certainly on this show and probably on many platforms. If people want to read that paper, is that something? Is there a link they can use to get hold of it?
I'll put something in the chat.
Lovely. Okay, well, thank you for that. A really important update, and sadly, it's not going to be an issue that's going to go away. I'm sure it can only get worse, which is a sad thought. So we're now going to move on. We're going to be talking about tax, and we're going to be visiting Latin America to talk about our tax update today. So everybody, we're going to say goodbye to Julie Onslow-Cole. We're going to bring onto the stage Julie Barron and her colleague Sean Brady from Vialto Partners. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say a big, big thank you to Julie Onslow-Cole, and welcome to the view from the top stage, Julie Barron and Sean Brady. Hey, Julie. Hey, Sean.
Hi, Brian.
Always good to see you. Sean, where in the world are you today?
I'm in San Jose, California today, Brian.
Okay, so you're in San Jose. And I said we're going to talk about employment tax in Latin America. So, Julie, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, so Sean did an interesting webcast last week about some employment tax issues. Sean is in our global employment tax team. So he's focused on Latin America and some interesting changes going on there. So over to you, Sean.
Thanks very much, Julie. So yeah, today we wanted to spotlight some employment tax updates from across the LATAM region. There's been a lot of developments this year, so we thought it'd be helpful just to do a bit of a whistle-stop tour of some of the major developments. So starting with Argentina, last year saw a lot of proposals. Firstly, there was the proposal to remove income tax withholding, and then the introduction of SEG income tax regime, which was effectively a new tax on higher earners. As a result, we currently have two income tax withholding regimes, and now there's a proposal before Congress to essentially unify these two regimes. So that will definitely be one to watch for employers, as there'll be implications for payroll processes and potentially for employees' net pay, depending on how they amalgamate those two different regimes. Moving next door to Brazil, I think one of the most noteworthy developments this year has been the kind of pay transparency rules which came into force. So this is a very worthy initiative to essentially establish mandatory equal pay for all employees. And employers will have a lot of specific reporting requirements to comply with these regulations. The reporting is in fact based on payroll data that's already submitted through the eSocial platform, and where contacted based on this eSocial information, companies must provide additional information on what their remuneration criteria are, what actions they're taking to support the hiring and promotion of equal pay amongst all workers. And there can be significant fines for non-compliance, as well as compensation for wage discrimination, and potentially if there's any significant discrepancies identified, employers may also be referred to the Ministry of Labour for additional action, but all with the kind of view to encourage gender kind of pay parity. The first batch of reports were published for action in March, and the next are due in September. So definitely want to watch for Brazil, and part of the trend we're seeing globally, where there's more pay transparency reporting taking place. Staying in Brazil, there's an ongoing interesting dispute between the government and the Congress around a 20% social tax exemption. So for background, there's a social tax exemption for 17 kind of labor-intensive industries, which collectively employ around 9 million workers and represent some of the country's largest employers. In May, after protracted kind of back and forth, there was eventually an agreement to continue this exemption for 2024 and gradually phase back in the tax over the next couple of years. Interestingly, last year, the government issued an executive order last week, effectively limiting some of the potential use of those payments that employers had. So before, if you paid the social taxes, you could use that contribution to offset against other federal taxes, but now they've limited that in a view to kind of try and recover some of that tax revenue from that exemption. And that's really angered a lot of local employers who are relying on the exemption and some of these credits. So probably more to come on this saga, as there's lots of lobbying to Congress in relation to trying to restore this social tax exemption, which does impact a lot of employers in Brazil. Finally, for Brazil, there's also the additional kind of income tax withholding reporting for the calendar year 2024, the DIRF form that was initially abolished, but now that's been reinstated. So employers or anyone making payments subject to withholding will need to continue to complete that for the 2024 calendar year. Moving to other countries, interestingly, both Chile and Colombia have pension reform that's before their respective parliaments. Colombia's one is probably further ahead. We're expecting some movement in the lower house by the 20th of June. This could be some significant changes to pensions across the board, how payments are calculated, who owns and manages the pension funds, what role employers need to play in the process. So one to watch for both Chile and Colombia in relation to pension reform. And finally, just for Mexico, on the ground, we're seeing a lot more audits from the Mexican tax authorities in the payroll space, particularly as they have very robust information from the monthly CFDI filings, where they can easily identify discrepancies and almost automate the tax notices that are sent to employers. So we're seeing a lot more activity from the Mexican authorities, and particularly in relation to areas focused on payroll withholdings, profit sharing calculations, and tax subsidies. So lots going on in the LATAM region. So happy to talk about any of those issues, but definitely a few items for employers to keep an eye on for the rest of 2024.
Sean, I am lost for breath. I'm lost for words. I mean, that was such an amazing tour de force. You've gone around all those countries dealing with important employment tax updates in whatever we give you, 4 minutes. So just, I mean, all of what you've achieved there, Sean. Really, really many thanks for being on the show today. And as ever, thank you to Julie for organising things internally at Vialto and getting the experts on and keeping us all up to date on tax news. We're now going to be moving on to talk about how you build your own global mobility business with, as I said, I'm super, super excited. We have both Vivi, Himmel and Lynn Greenberg with us, two of the leading female tech entrepreneurs. In fact, take out the word female, two of the leading tech entrepreneurs in the world today. And we are just super excited. And I know you're going to have loads of questions, fascinating stories. So everybody, You know how it works. Please, as much as you've ever done before, hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say thank you to Sean and to Julie, and welcome onto the View from the Top stage, Vivi, Himmel and Lynn Greenberg. Hey, Lynn, Vivi, I am so excited. I love talking to entrepreneurs, and I just really want to get into the stories and find out about. So let's start off. Where are you both today? So Lynn, whereabouts are you today?
I'm in New York City today.
Cool, in the city, right? So you're
in the city.
Cool. And Vivi, where are you today?
Hi, Brian. I'm actually dialing in from California, from Los Angeles.
Cool. So we're bi-coastal today, and there I am, the other side of the pond. So let's just talk about it. I mean, most people, I think, will have heard of Pivt and AltoVita, but let's just assume there's people out there that maybe don't know what you do. So starting off with you, Vivi, just tell us a bit about what about yourself and AltoVita.
Well, AltoVita is a global corporate accommodation. We are present in about 165 countries, 35,000 locations around the world. Wow. And we focus mainly on very large enterprise. Fortune 2000 companies are our clients. About myself, well, I think it's not complete to talk about me without Carolina. So the two of us started the business about 6 years ago now. We launched AltoVita in 2018. First as a B2C company, AltoVita.com, and then we pivoted into B2B entirely because we saw that it was actually the corporate clients who truly resonated with our value proposition at the time, which is to provide standardization and quality assurance. What's super special about myself and Carolina, I think, is because of our background. We are from all over the world. We're citizens of the world, so to speak. I'm from Indonesia. I lived in Australia, Hong Kong, New York, Tokyo, Shanghai. Same with Carolina. She's from Prague, a beautiful city in Czech Republic. And she's lived in Geneva, Gabon, in India, as well as in Indonesia, where I'm from. So I believe that it's our cultural diversity and this global mindset that has been translated into the core DNA of AltoVita. So now today, AltoVita is about 100 employees. We represent 18 nationalities and we speak 21 languages.
Wow. Okay, we're going to get a lot more into that, but that's a fantastic overview. Now, you said, of course, you started a business B2C and you pivoted. Entrepreneurs use that word a lot. But Lynn, you use that word every minute of the day. Obviously, you've named your business Pivot. But Lynn, tell us a bit about yourself and your background, a bit about Pivot.
Yeah, well, so first of all, thanks for everyone for joining in, and Brian and Benivo for having me, and Vivi, such a pleasure to learn your story and learn from you. So really a pleasure to be here. So my name is Lynn Greenberg. I'm the founder and CEO of Pivt, which was actually started out of my own experience, relocating to London to work for Bloomberg as a 21-year-old right out of college, and facing the issue that all people do when moving somewhere new, which is where do you start to make your new city feel like home? And despite the fact that I had a hefty relocation package, the one thing that was missing for me turned out to be the number one concern of all relocated and mobile employees, which is that social well-being. And very long story short, because I know we're going to get into it, Pivt is a platform designed to reduce turnover and improve the social well-being for relocated, mobile, remote employees and their families. And we really do that by bringing together moving expertise, wellness, and community, all through a personalized app experience. Obviously, This is personal to me, personal to our team, and so many of our clients. And really the reason why I built this was my 3 years in London was life-changing. And we want as many people as possible to say yes to life-changing opportunities in unfamiliar places and feel supported throughout. So thanks for having me, and looking forward to diving in further.
I hear so many people tell the story, so many mobility entrepreneurs tell the story that they moved themselves, and because of the experience when they moved, that inspired them to launch a business. I've heard Vivi say that, I've heard you say that, I know Nitsan from Benevo said that, I remember hearing Brinatopia saying it back in the day. I mean, so many people have said the same thing, that they moved and they realized actually it shouldn't be that difficult, but it is, or they needed some support in some way. So tell us a bit about the dream. When did you start, maybe with you, Vivi, when did you start dreaming that dream, and how did it go from, dream? Because I think a lot of people, dream the dream, but nothing ever happens about it. There's that, how do you turn a dream into reality? So tell me your story about, Vivi, about how you moved from, just having a dream, having a nice drink with Carolina and talking about it, to actually making it a reality.
Well, when we started, we had another co-founder. His name is Ronak Hansbal, and I think he's absolutely key because he put together the two of us. So Carolina and I actually never met before, and he randomly met Carolina in Mumbai at a bar. And then I had been friends with Ronak for a long time. We used to work together in Hong Kong. And he came to visit me one summer in London, and I was actually taking time off, enjoying my life, actually learning a lot about wine at the time, visiting many different vineyards. And he said, let's do something. And I said, not really up for it, enjoying my life now, taking time off. And I said, but if you want to start something, this is all I want to do, which is in hospitality, in real estate, in technology. I don't know much about technology, but this is what I wanted to do. And he said, let's do it, and I'll bring in a partner, Carolina. And that's how it all started. And it all started with a WhatsApp chat. We incorporated the company in December 2016. 2017 was a year of research. We built our MVP, and then we finally launched it with $25,000. AltoVita.com, January 2018. Dreaming the dream, Brian, I think that, looking back now, it's been 6 years into the journey. I think that we all require that resilience, tenacity, and most importantly, being bold, having that courage, perhaps not to be too dwelling into the things that don't matter and just take the shot. And as I learned as well along the way, not everyone can be a founder. It does take a certain trait and character. You have to sacrifice a lot, and you have to be able to live with a lot of uncertainty. Ryan, you're on mute.
My God, schoolboy error. It's because I was typing a message backstage, you see, and I didn't want the typing to come out. So I apologize to my audience. Lynn, question for you. I mean, just hearing what Vivi was saying there. I mean, how did you move from dream to reality there? And by the way, you're on mute too.
Got it. So I think it's important to note that this was never a dream of mine, at least to start with. Now it absolutely is. But I took one business class in college. The only tech experience I had was what I was doing at Bloomberg at the time. I had no intention of starting a business, but I'm a pretty outgoing person. And when I landed in London and, couldn't get the information on my city from people that I could trust and couldn't find friends right away, in the manner that I thought people should be able to, I became curious. And so I just started asking other colleagues of mine at Bloomberg London, which is the international hub, really from the standpoint of what can I do to make my experience better? What am I doing wrong? And the more I dove into it, And the more I found that this was a problem much bigger than just myself. And so it was a really iterative 3 years of really doing research, really stem from how can I make my experience better to ultimately I'm having a life-changing 3 years. It saddens me that so many people don't take this opportunity and then don't make the most of it. How do I make a difference here? And so that's when it really became true.
You were working at Bloomberg, and then in the evenings and weekends, you were thinking, actually, there's a germ of a business here, and that was germinating over a couple of years whilst you were at Bloomberg before you actually did. What was it like? I mean, was it scary? So, saying to Bloomberg, sorry, Bloomberg, you're a lovely company, but I've got my own business to build.
Well, I was over in London for about 3 years working for Bloomberg. And then actually we started building out our MVP. And at that time, decided to move back to New York to really conceptualize this and get Pivt off the ground. Wasn't at the point where I could really take it full time. And so I actually joined a venture capital firm with the intention of always starting Pivt. But knowing that there was a lot for me to learn and I needed a full-time job. And so really took that opportunity to learn the other side of things. What makes a company valuable? What makes a company investable? What are some things I should know in building a team and really kind of scaling this company? So it was 3 years and then some of a lot of building, iterating before, we got that initial stage of Pivt off the ground as a B2C solution.
Because I think fear is one of the things that actually stops people starting businesses. That, in a way, if you're successful and you're in a well-paid job, in some ways it's harder to start your business than if actually you're desperate to find something to make a living. And Vivi, you were working in investment banking, which is not a area of business that's notoriously for being poorly paid. So, you were in a really high-powered job. Was it very scary to sort of just take that leap and say you're going to start your own business?
To be very honest, the answer is no. Brian, I think it was super excited, and I love the feeling of being able to build something. And as I mentioned before, I think the courage and being bold is key to start your own business. So yeah, I suppose all you need is a strong conviction for yourself, and then just rally the troops. Okay.
Now, Lynn, there's a question I want to ask you, because I look at it and I know you told me the story earlier, and it just amazes me. Okay. It's always nice to have a big name shareholder, a big name investor on your board. And there's not many names in the tech industry that are bigger than Zuckerberg. So, and you got Randy Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg's sister, on your board. How did you manage that? I'm assuming she wasn't like your sister-in-law or something. How did you manage that?
No, so it was, it was really interesting because in our initial stages of starting Pivt and our in the B2B side of things, we would always get the question, well, how are you different from Facebook groups? And so, that coupled with Randy being the, founding CMO of Facebook and just a huge proponent for women entrepreneurs, my boss at the time at the venture capital firm I was working at said, who would be great for Pivt is Randy Zuckerberg. And I kind of laughed at him and I said, yep, Ashton Kutcher would be great too. And he said, no, really, she's doing a book tour. You should go. And so went to her book tour, which was in downtown Manhattan. And after the fact, chased her down and said, Randy, I really think you're going to resonate with what we're building. Can I send you some information? And she said, can you send me a message on Instagram? So I sent her a message on Instagram, then sent her an email. And, she really just resonated with what we were doing. She had relocated from San Francisco to New York after, being a founding member of Facebook, and said, this is something that Facebook really can't do in the manner that Pivt is doing. I want to be a part of it. And so we're so lucky to have her. We have a tremendous set of investors, many of which are, high profile in their field.
Yeah, name some names, because I know you got some huge names. I mean, I picked on one, but name some of the other people you got on your board.
We have Evan Siegel, who's the former deputy CFO under Obama. We have former CMO of Walmart. We have the founder of Caviar, which was sold to DoorDash. We have the former Australian CEO of Deliveroo. A whole list of fantastic investors that really have resonated with our story. I think anyone that has relocated really understands that it's really hard to start from scratch. And, the numbers are there, and we can get into this, but this was the kind of the moment that I found that we really have to start focusing on the B2B route. When I found that companies spend on average $90,000 domestically, $300,000 internationally relocating someone, and a third of them will quit their job within a year or move back home because of their and their family's inability to socially acclimate. I think so many people that have moved can relate to that. And that doesn't even stand for the number of people that don't say yes in the first place because of those implications. And so really grateful to have a great set of investors and advisors that have been pretty hands-on and really resonated with our mission.
Okay. And Vivi, I mean, that's just an amazing story. I just want to change it slightly, Vivi, because Lynn started her business, pretty much, runs it pretty much on her own. I know your brother was involved, Lynn, but Vivi, you started
a great team, a really strong, great team.
Absolutely. But the point I want to get to is that, Vivi, you've got a co-founder with Carolina, and the two of you how important is it, in your perspective, to start a business with a partner as opposed to doing it on your own or with a larger group? I mean, is there a magic in having a partner, a business partner?
Yeah, I mean, there are two sides of this, and my personal experience tells me that I would not have it any other way. But I also attended some sort of startup bootcamp quite a few years ago, and they said that the most optimal number of founders is 2, not 1, not 3, not 4. And you can see with Apple, it was Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and then Microsoft, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, and so on and so forth. And I think that is extremely right. And with myself and Carolina, we are very lucky to find each other, because it can also obviously backfire. We share the same vision, we share the same mindset, and most importantly, work ethic. And so we don't waste a lot of time in debating, and we just believe in each other's vision and just focus on the execution.
At what point did you realize that, and I'll address this to both of you, at what point did you realize that what you had wasn't a hobby, but was actually a business that was there to stay, that it was substantial? It'd gone from, if you like, kitchen table to being, oh my God, I'm responsible for other people. It's a serious business. Vivi, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, sure. We have 100 people now, so that is a serious responsibility. Yeah. And I think
a lot of people depend on you.
Yes, depend on us, and yeah, I think perhaps no is not an answer. Being lazy also is not an answer. So you just have to fight for it every single day, every night. And to be honest, we often forget to cherish and really embrace what we have achieved. And I was just messaging Carolina just right before our show, and we should take a moment and celebrate our achievements, because we are so in the weeds of the day-to-day, and there's so many challenges that we have to overcome on a daily basis, from sales to product to engineering to client management and so on and so forth. And yeah, I think that now we do have a serious business to run. We have some serious clients as well in our books. We have PwC, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and many other amazing, incredible logos. And I'm out here in California meeting a few investors for our next round, and they've all been very impressed with our achievement. And I love the word capital efficiency. We've raised so far about $16 million, and according to the West Coast investors, we have been extremely capital efficient, and these are all music to my ears. And to be honest, every day is exciting. And what I love about my job at AltoVita is most importantly the learning aspect. As I mentioned before, I didn't know anything about technology, had zero knowledge about sales and marketing. My background is in finance. I know how to crunch numbers, but that's it. And I was able to learn all of these because I am running AltoVita with Carolina.
Well, let's just take that on, because it's interesting, because I think a lot of people think to launch a tech business, you need to know tech. But what you're saying is that wasn't your background. And Lynn, from your point of view, you didn't come from a tech background either. So why did you get into a tech business knowing nothing about tech?
Well, as I mentioned, there was the reason why, I kind of sought out to do research was never really with the intention of starting a business, but really to understand the problem. And what I found was that tech was a means to the end, right? A way that we could really accomplish connecting people to the people they know and should know, getting people the information that they needed in the palm of their hands. And so it made sense from a means to an end. But again, it was all about how do we solve this problem in the best way possible. And then still, I'm no tech expert. So how do I, surround myself with people that do and can really handle that aspect of the business?
Okay. We touched on something earlier. I want to go back into it, which is that not everybody can be an entrepreneur, or not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but to be an entrepreneur, you need certain characteristics. So maybe just sticking with you for the moment, Lynn, what is it that it takes to be, in your view, what is it that it takes to be a successful founder?
I'm still learning. And I will never say that I know all the answers. There's plenty of things I could be doing differently and learning, but what I do know, more or less working on the idea for about 10 years now, and then my time in venture capital prior, is it takes a lot of tenacity. I think Vivi also mentioned it takes really being able to step back, celebrating the little wins, because it is, an extremely difficult journey. I think, a person that really understands, as I was mentioning before, with not knowing the tech side of things, knowing what they're good at and what they're really not good at, so that they can surround themselves with people that can really complement, their strengths and their attributes. And then I think, it's a constant wave of curiosity. I think you have to stay constantly curious, always looking to iterate and improve, both personally and then as a business. And then I think the last aspect that I'll mention that I think is so key, and this would be something that I would ask on the venture side of things when looking to invest in a company, is what is your why? You really have to have a strong why, because the journey is extremely difficult. There's probably more hard days than there are good days. And so if you're not passionate about what you're building, if there isn't a North Star that you're really going towards, it's really hard, despite some of the attributes that I mentioned before, to really make it great and keep going.
What is your North Star? What is your goal?
So as I mentioned, it's really, can we give people the support and the opportunity to take life-changing opportunities like I had, and give them the support so that they stay and make the most of it.
Okay, so Vivi, moving on to you, we've talked about some of the characteristics you need. We've talked about vision, tenacity, and passion. I think you mentioned them and Lynn's mentioned them too. What about luck? What role does luck play in all of this?
my view is don't rely on luck. You have to be in control of your destiny, I believe. And luck is a catalyst. Of course, we can all do with a bit of luck here and there. But I believe in doing your homework, doing your research, know your audience, and really be prepared. I think you taught me this, Brian, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. I think I believe that truly, and without these, we won't even have the opportunity to place our bets in the right way, to even test whether we have luck or not.
Yeah, one of the things I found, because I launched a business myself with the Form for Expatriate Management, and one of the things I found when I launched it, and I'd be interested if you had the same experience, is that when you launch a business, people want to help. There's a feeling of goodwill towards people starting businesses, and I found people just warm to the concept. Did you have a similar experience, that people sort of were out there willing you to succeed?
Yeah, 100%. One of you asked us to prepare maybe one or two advice to share today, and probably one of the biggest advice I would like to share is to line up your early fans, right? Be it early adopters, early clients, early employees, and early investors as well. And I would say that early employees are probably the most important people you have to line up, because in the beginning, we probably had nothing but a piece of paper and vision and some traction. And having the early employees believe in you, they are the ones who are going to drive it for you. And the same with your ambassadors in the community, as well as investors. We raised a lot of funds because of our existing investors advocating other investors within their network.
And I've got a question that's come in from Rob Zeitz, which actually I'd like to ask both of you. Maybe I'll start with you, Lynn. He said he's curious, how have you been able to convince an established industry to accept new ideas? And it is, quite often people don't like change. They're a bit scared of doing things differently. How did you manage to persuade people to accept, in both your cases, pretty radical new ideas?
So, Rob, I think it's a really good question. And to be honest, something we're still grappling with. What I've found, and to my surprise a lot of the times, is a lot of what we have to do at Pivot is around education. Our industry is fantastic, but we've been doing things in the same way for years and years, right? You look at the core relocation package. There's been the same things that have been a part of it, despite new data coming out, right? Despite what employees are telling us, and a lot of what we do at Pivot, because we're really advocating for the social well-being component. And after the relocation management companies and the companies do a great job of moving you and your things from A to B, the what now? How do we keep people? How do we stay? And a lot of what we have to do is say, we should be tracking retention. We should be caring about what happens to people after they move. And this is why, right? And so, Rob, to your point, what we've been trying to do is really educate people on why this matters. And then also bring data to the forefront, right? As I mentioned before, the staggering statistic of $90,000 to $300,000 spent only for a third to quit their job within a year, move back home, and up to 3 times that amount of the employee's salary to then replace them, right? And then what we've been able to prove through, tracking this and really working alongside some of the biggest organizations globally is the average company that uses Pivot will see a 700% ROI in terms of retention. And so what does that mean? 700.
Wow.
What does that mean, right? How can mobility professionals bring that to their organization and say, here, we're creating efficiency, we're saving money, and we're also doing right by way of the employee and their family. And so a lot of it, Rob, we're still learning, but it's that educational component paired with real hard data on why it matters.
Okay, I'm going to move the conversation on quite a bit, but because we haven't got that long, I've got so many questions to ask you. But Vivi, just on that, just if you can give me a quick answer on that, how have you managed to persuade the industry to accept new ideas? Because I know AltoVita has done some really radical, game-changing stuff.
I think it's still all goes back to having those early fans, right, Brian? So having early adopters who believe in your vision, and I think also nail your story. People resonate with story. People want to invest in people more than business. There is a book called Crossing the Chasm, which beautifully illustrates the different types of clients. It's like a technology adoption life cycle. There are clients who are just visionary clients, meaning they know they're not going to have a fully baked product, but they're willing to invest their time because they believe in you, and you end up co-designing the product together. We have a few of those clients that have guided us from the get-go, and they've now become one of our biggest revenue generator clients for AltoVita. So, and most importantly as well is being honest about it, right? So they don't stumble upon a product that may or may not work. This is a beta test. This is an MVP. We value your input. How can we work together so that we can shape the product the right way for the industry? So they're buying in from the get-go. They're part of your story. They're part of your journey, and they have an input that could transform the industry. And the key here is to obviously identify who are the visionary ones and who are the skeptics. And obviously don't pitch the wrong choir.
Okay, so I'm just going to change subject a wee bit. I mean, I mentioned in the introduction, of course, you are two amazing tech entrepreneurs, but tech entrepreneurs generally are, the vast majority are male. Successful female tech entrepreneurs are an embarrassingly small minority, and I don't know why, but that seems to be the fact that most VCs would say. So questions come in from Carol, and she said, does the fact you are a woman and young and maybe have a different perspective from the traditional, perhaps man with a trailing family, make a difference in your business model? Are you able to see things and anticipate things that others perhaps would not have been able to do? Just curious. So let's just talk about the fact you are both female entrepreneurs. Has that made a difference or not really? I mean, what's your take on that? And also, actually, as a follow-up to that, you both raised money. When you were raising money, did you find that being female in any way helped, hindered, or had no impact whatsoever, one way or the other?
I can, I'll start. So I think from Carol, your question, which is a great one. I think what's so interesting about our industry is that it's so diverse in terms of the gender, in terms of where we all come from, the different attributes, nationalities. And so I do think gender, just like all of the others, really does bring a unique perspective. One thing that we really, started from day one was really based on customer input, which was that the trailing spouses, a lot of cases, the woman was not given any real support. And so one of the first things that we did was we gave free access to our platform to all partners and spouses, because we recognize, looking at the data, that 70% of relocations fail, not necessarily because the employee has difficulty acclimating, but because the partner or spouse have trouble doing so, and they're so often left out of the mix. What we also learned very early on is that partner and spouses have a really tough time kind of talking about some of their questions and their concerns to their employer or even their RMC, because they're afraid that it's going to get back to the company and be to the detriment of their partner or spouse. And so we created a place where they felt like they could be their full selves, where they can ask those questions, where they can be vulnerable, to really give them the opportunity to take their relocation journey under their reins. And I see Lorraine said so true. REA does a great job also kind of extending this. From the funding perspective, less than 3% of women founders get venture money. It's really startling. And, there were times originally when we were a consumer app, I started it with my brother. And again, it was my younger brother, I'm 3 years older, had way more, I had experience in venture capital. I had experience relocating, it was my story. And there were times where I said, am I thinking to myself, am I doing a detriment to our business because I'm the CEO? And it's pretty crazy to think that. I've certainly have been in conversations from the venture side of things where, I've been compared to men in unfair ways. But like anything else, I think it's about embracing your individuality and what sets you apart. And so there's a lot of ways that you can take advantage of being a female founder, right? There are funds that only invest in female founders. There's a lot of people that are willing to be mentors and spend 5 minutes of your time because you're a female founder. So I think, more so than anything, it's about trying to find what creates an opportunity out of it as opposed to the hindrance.
Okay, we're pretty much running out of time. I can see you nodding vehemently with that, Vivi. So in fact, what I'll do is I'll just move on to one last question, which is I always think a business needs to have, I call it a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, a vision. Where do you want AltoVita to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? What's the big vision of what you're going to achieve?
We do have a big, hairy goal, Brian. Our dream is to be able to become a company that matters over the next few decades. It's not just about myself and Carolina anymore. It will be hopefully a company that will truly transform corporate accommodation. We've always been inspired by the likes of Booking.com, Airbnb, of course. They're all listing on the NASDAQ with $80 to $100 billion market cap. We want to be like them. There is Expedia as well, and we want to be the fourth company that would list on the NASDAQ, however, with a very distinct, unique value proposition. And AltoVita should be synonymous to corporate accommodation, compliance, safety, and security.
Somehow, Vivi, I think you're going to get there. You've got a lot of love in this audience. There's a lot of love in the industry. Clearly, it's something that you've got a passion about. And I'll leave the last 30 seconds or so to you, Lynn. What's your big goal? Where's Pivt going to be in 5-10 years' time?
We want this to be a part of every relocated employee's experience. We want Pivt to be in the palm of their hands. We want it to really be mainstream and matter, that what happens after the logistics of the move matters just as much, and that people feel supported. They feel like they can take those life-changing opportunities and make the most of them without thinking twice. And so that's really the goal of Pivt.
Hey, you guys are amazing. I'm just going to bring on our previous guest, Julia Onslow-Cole, Julie Barron, and of course, our wonderful producer, Tally. That has been the most amazing show. We could have gone on for another hour, but we only have an hour. Everybody out there in the audience, as we say goodbye, please do hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's give a really, really big round of virtual applause to two incredible tech founders. What you have both achieved with Pivt app and with AltoVita is nothing short of absolutely amazing. And I know, speaking personally and on behalf of the other guests and indeed everybody in the industry, we wish you every success. And I'm sure that if anybody out there is thinking of launching advice and wants to pick your brains, I'm sure they will be able to send you a message. It's amazing. As Petra says, they're amazing stories. They're coming up, all these comments. Kathy saying, loving it. And I think Petra said something wonderful. And I mean, it's just amazing, all these comments. Anyway, We're finished. We are back this time next week when we're going to be talking about the importance of benchmarking with Ellen Shipley and Russ Haney. I'm Brian Friedman. This has been The View from the Top. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you again this time next week. Take care, everybody, and goodbye.